Make sure that kicks off. There we go. All right, so events in Microsoft Teams is the name of this session, Collab Track 1. Nick Stillings is going to take through us his content. Just a couple things, if you don't remember from the other sessions you've attended, yes, everything's being recorded. Please mute yourself throughout the course of this session. If you do have any questions, please raise your hands. We'll call on you. Come off mute if you want to, or easy enough to go ahead and throw something in chat. We'll try to answer those, and I'll make sure that Nick gets those questions if he doesn't see those. Live captioning is available for you. Also, please be interactive, everybody. I mean, this is an opportunity for you to be able to ask questions of somebody who really knows this information. And it also gets you an opportunity to be able to win a $25 gift card. So that's a great one. Also, make sure, we'll throw the survey link in there, but make sure that you also do the survey before you leave for the day. That would be great. You'll get in for that grand prize, as well as just give us feedback. We appreciate that, as well as the presenters too. We can't do anything without our sponsors, so make sure you go in and talk with them or get an opportunity to connect with them. It's a great way to be able to see how they can help you with maybe an issue that you have or a solution that you need for within the Microsoft 365 ecosystem. As I mentioned, the Surface Laptop Go is our grand prize from the survey, so please make sure you let us know what's going on and how we can improve this. And with that, Nick, hey, it's all yours.
All right, thanks. Great intro. I really appreciate it.
No problem.
I'll flip over and steal the screen share from you. And then, yeah, as always, if you don't mind keeping an eye on chat for me and stuff like that as we go, I'm kind of doing the same thing as well. But welcome, everyone. Let's see, Don, why don't you give me just a quick confirmation? Can you see me okay?
Absolutely.
Or see my screen? Sorry. All right. And me, yeah. I guess. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Can there be too many things? So great. Well, this session is it's a passion area for mine, and partly because I've just done a lot of events in my career, in person, virtual, in Teams and other platforms like WebEx, Zoom, live meeting, maybe even net meeting at some point. And we just made some announcements last month at Microsoft Ignite of some new capabilities that are coming to Microsoft Teams around events. So I want to do quick housekeeping and level set here, like in the first minute. I'm going to tell you what I've got prepared, and we're going to vote on it. And I also want to make sure, like, because opportunity cost is jumping into one of the other sessions, or at least in Minnesota, it's a nice sunny day out today, getting a little bit of time outside too. So everything will be recorded. I've also got, and Don, if you'll help me with this, I've never made it more than about 5 minutes into one of these sessions without getting stumped by a question. So we'll capture anything, and I'll include that in like the slides that we post for follow-up after we have a chance to do a little bit of research on that. I'm going to call out a best practice that Don just did that I always like to do as well as with any event. I like to give people kind of an overview of how we're going to engage. And the reason is, like, we're all used to watching videos on YouTube or sitting at a big conference. It's like, even right now, you might be a little sleepy from lunch. You're watching me do my thing on screen, and your brain is going, oh, I've been here before. I'm going to sit passively and ingest content I can check out. And so by kind of bumping into that a little bit, we can try and encourage a little bit of engagement, and also just kind of level set how the session is going to flow. So Don covered all these already, but I just want to hit them one more time. If you click the 3 dots up top and hit turn on live captions, I get really excited and talk fast. So we'll see if Azure Cognitive Services can keep up with me. We'll go through that. And then you can also use reactions to give me feedback. Do you want to try it right now? Just hit the little reaction button and give a smiley face or a heart or something. You'll help me with my low self-esteem. Yay. Thank you, Don. All right, Don. Okay, couple. Thank you, Anna. Thank you. Good. And then as we go to, like, if you have questions, drop them in the chat as we go. I will stop for questions. Don will keep me honest and make me stop. But then when we get to it, when we're all talking at once, we'll just use raise hand to kind of manage it. And I'm also going to toss out a poll from time to time just to give us a chance to be a little interactive as we go. So let me bring up my first one. What I've got today is prepared is to talk about large structured meetings in Teams. That's kind of the first pillar of events. And I'm going to define events in a second. I've got a slide on it, but I think of it as like this is an event versus a collaborative meeting where we're all roughly at parity. An event tends to be a little bit more informative, tends to have more formal roles like a presenter and attendee. And sometimes we'll do things to the platform to kind of ensure a good experience, like turning off attendee microphones or only letting certain people share their screen. That's what I think of as an event, kind of lowercase. And I can do events in lots of different platforms. We'll be talking about today in Teams. So my 3 pillars, the first is just a large structured meeting. That is not the name of a feature. It's a nick term that I use. It's a Teams meeting where I've gone into meeting options and I've turned on some stuff to enable some more control. So that's topic number 1. Topic number 2 is Teams webinars. This is a webinar essentially is a meeting with registration and reporting. So it's not a different kind of offering like a live event is. I'll talk about that in a second. It's just a Teams meeting with a little bit of gating to allow people into the meeting. They have to register first, and then some reporting on who has registered. So it's got kind of a nice, lightweight webinar management capability. There's 2 slightly confusing things with this. We are updating our webinar experience. So when a user goes and clicks new webinar, there's a slightly different dialogue how that rolls out. And that's just included with Teams with all the licenses that have access to webinars. And we have something called Teams Premium, which is an add-on SKU to Teams that has a couple of additional webinar things. So I'll kind of cover both of those. Live Events is our broadcast tool in Teams. So that takes the content of a meeting, like we're in right now, Microsoft Teams. So here you're seeing me on the webcam and seeing my desktop share. It grabs that content and sends it up into the cloud using RTMP, a streaming protocol, and sends the content down to attendees as a media stream. It's very different than a regular meeting. It's quite powerful and it tends to throw people off the first time they use it. Right now we're in a meeting. There's about 31 of us. And so what's happening is we're connected into the meeting microservice in Microsoft Teams, the cloud, and there's a meeting controller that's doing things like managing. If I like click the mute button, it's actually receiving my audio the entire time. It's just not muxing it in and sending it out to the stream to everybody. So when I click unmute, it then enables that and sends it down. It all happens in real time. It uses UDP, which is essentially a lossy protocol. That means if I freeze, if I have a little bit of a glitch or something, I'll freeze for a second. And then when I'm back, I'm kind of back in real time and you see me. You don't see me move really quick to kind of catch up. And you've experienced this too if you've ever had like that digital artifacting that sometimes happens in a meeting, where it just sounds really weird, like something out of the Matrix or kind of echoey. What's happening is packets are getting dropped somewhere along the line. And Teams says, you know what, it's more important that I stay current with all the packets than try to catch them all. That's a meeting. A live event is kind of the opposite. It grabs the content from the meeting, the shared screen, webcams, sends it up over the cloud, sends it down to the users as RTMP, a real-time media protocol, which is a media stream, which is like streaming something from YouTube or watching it from a streaming service. We've all probably experienced this. You're watching something, the packets start to drop. What happens? It pauses. It optimizes and says it's more important that you get all the packets rather than keeping up with the content. And then it resumes once buffering happens and pushes it on. Because of that, the attendees are not like in the same session as presenters and speakers, and that tends to throw people off a little bit with a live event because they try to do something like promote an attendee to presenter, which you can't do. So we can talk through that. As part of either of those 2 things, we can talk about advanced production. That is using technology like NDI or network device interface, which is a way to extract media like the webcam and audio from a Teams meeting, bring it into a studio environment. Like if you have a studio production environment or software like OBS Studio, compose a custom scene and send it out. So it's quite advanced, like an AV person would do. And it also includes using some of the RTMP capabilities as well. So you can kind of step through that for meetings. The finally last topic is Teams Premium. We can kind of step through the license and kind of what is inside of that. So this is an add-on to Teams. It's going into preview in December. We expect it to start rolling out in February, and it's a collection of several different features that essentially optimize things for meetings or add on more capabilities for meetings or meeting organizers. So I'd like some feedback. I'm bringing up a poll right now. If you're watching this on the Windows client, it should pop up or the web client over the meeting stage. Otherwise, in chat, you should be able to go in and do it. If you would, drag and drop these topics around and let me know which is most important to you. You can also hover over any little rectangles and hit the up or down arrow. And then once you're done, just scroll down a little bit and hit submit. And that'll just give me a little guidance on how to prioritize the next hour and 15 minutes or so. I'm going to give it about 10 more seconds. Oh, and Don, can you just confirm that, like, you see the poll? Thanks.
Yep, poll is definitely there.
All right, I'm going to go. Let's go 10 more seconds. The majority rules. Okay. Well, that is about what I thought. I thought premium might go a little higher, but I wasn't quite sure. Okay. So that's what we're going to cover today. So we'll do it in, let's see, can I screenshot this really quick? Let me grab our kind of flow for the day. So if you have to take off and then come back or something, this is going to be roughly what I'm attempting to stick to, is this order of stuff. All right, great. Let me do my level set slide on events. And then I'm going to pause for questions, and then I will dive into large meetings. That first one, large structure meetings. So in Teams, we think of it, there's a bunch of stuff I can do. I can have apps. It can be my single pane of glass. I can do collaborative work. And I can also do lots of different types of meetings. So the way we think of this continuum is I've got my one-on-one calling that I can do with people, or even Teams phone calling out to the PSTN. I've got an interactive group meeting, which is what this one is. Right, I'm doing all the talking, but you guys can all come off mute, turn on your I think, can they, Don? Did you put any options in place? Can people come off mute? Let me look really quick. Okay, yeah, so this is like, yeah, we're in the Minnesota M365 user group together, so we're all kind of all at parity and trust each other. If I was doing like a big training session with a bunch of users, I might have this kind of locked down a little bit more, but essentially a collaborative meeting is what 90% of meetings are, that our telemetry shows us. People just schedule the meeting with all the defaults that jump in. But I've got this other kind of concept of an event where I've just got more control. And that could be something like a company all hands or a town hall where I could have hundreds of people in a meeting. It could be a broadcast where I've got thousands of people. It could be a webinar that's either public or internal. Maybe I want to track training registration, for example. And I've got the word conferences on here. However, that is probably one area that we don't quite yet have an inbox capability in Microsoft Teams for. A conference, just kind of looking at the bottom right of this slide, that's like what we're in today, the workshop day, where I've got multiple tracks, multiple sessions. What are there, 4 tracks, 5 tracks, Don? And we're running these as tracks, so there's 5 or 6 different meetings, including the keynotes. You can also have a conference where I've got all those tracks times all the time slots, and I can have 15 different meetings. Teams doesn't have a way to schedule and manage all of those at scale. I just want to stop there for a second because I get this question a lot. We would like to do a 3-day hybrid event in Microsoft Teams, and we want a scheduling system to handle all that registration, setting up the meetings, sending out invites. Teams doesn't do that out of the box. For the event today, we're using Eventbrite and another tool called Sessionize to manage the agenda and slides and things like that. In Microsoft's flagship events like Microsoft Ignite, we use some third parties. We use EventCore to help us manage. This is an event with 50,000 people in it. We render a lot of our content as a Teams meeting, but we extract the content with NDI and display it on a custom web page. We use a third-party tool called Pubble, which allows us to do the sort of Twitch or Facebook Live, little emojis that kind of go up the side. So even though we make the thing, there's when you get to a certain scale, we find that some of the integrations with some of our third parties kind of help us manage that. So the other place that I have this show up is in webinars. When someone says, hey, we're a marketing department and we would like to do a series of recurring webinars every other week for a year. We want to manage those 26 and be able to see the registration for all of them, bring them into an Excel pivot table or Power BI. You can't. Each one is individually set up and done. So when we think of an event in Teams, I'm just kind of defining that. I think of that as just a specific a point in time session that I can do. Oh, someone's popped up a poll. Let me take advantage of it really quick. So what's happened here is I've added an app called Microsoft Polls, and since we're all presenters, we can click a little polls thing and go in there so you can see my next questions that are going to come up. One of the newer options is something called an instant poll, and it's kind of nice. You can just toss out a yes or no question to ask it. So somebody hit that. It's totally okay that you did. This is a fun, informal session. Let me just use this really quick. Has anyone ever scheduled a conference like today, where Microsoft Teams is the way that you're delivering all the sessions. So multi-session event using Microsoft Teams. Have you ever done that? Just click yes or no, and we'll see our voting again. Okay, I see a couple people came. Oh, and I'm seeing on one computer it says submission failed. So we might have killed the
It looks
poll
like it got
halfway.
deleted. Oh, now somebody threw it in there.
That's back around. Yeah, that's right. Okay, that's about like about a third or out of 3 people. So that's enough for now. You can, and you'll notice a setting I've got on all these polls is it shows us the results. So it doesn't go away, the little polling box, until you click done or click the X, and then that'll take it off of the main meeting screen. So I think I covered a lot of this already of kind of what makes an event. More informative than collaborative, a little bit more control, usually different tiers of people. Some of these are formal names like presenter or organizer, or you can just be the person in charge and you've just got a couple additional settings. But that's kind of what we think of as an event. And then I'm about to step through kind of the definition of the large meeting, webinar, and live event. Let me pause here for breath and questions. Anything so far, you can raise your hand or drop it into the chat.
All right, looks like Arthur's threw something in.
Oh yeah. So let me call this out, Arthur, and tell me if I'm misstating it. But one of the challenges with Teams meetings versus, say, a live event is the live event gives you a lot more control on what's on the meeting stage and what people are seeing. I have some of that control in Teams. The other thing a live event lets me do is scale. I can go up to 10,000 users out of the box. We've bumped that up to 20,000 until the end of the year. You can actually request Microsoft to raise it on a one-off basis. We can bump it up to 100,000. And so far today, Teams is kind of limited at 1,000. So it kind of requires us to use that other tool if we want to get bigger or have that control. Is that an accurate restatement of your comment?
I'll just chat here if that's okay. It'd probably be faster than typing.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, I meant please come on.
No. I think when we evaluated Teams, our organization has meetings of up to 3,000 people or so. The big issue with us was our leadership level was wanting their entire panel on screen at once. And in a remote standpoint, you can only have one video stream and one shared content screen. So that really entered the requirement for us to have a producer that can manage the camera. Right? I'm doing air quotes around the camera here and choreograph all of that. Whereas Teams meetings seems a lot more organic in terms of how you can participate, provided the meeting is set up appropriately beforehand. Who can share mic or screen or content. So that was kind of where we landed. We still use WebEx for our larger scale meetings because a lot of that knowledge is already kind of in-house. There's some tribal knowledge around it. And we're waiting for the day Microsoft to boost it to 2,000 participants at a time or something, because that would probably sunset WebEx for us.
Okay, yeah. I'll talk to that a little bit. We have something called view only overflow that lets you get over 1,000, and I actually don't like it, and I'll talk to why when I get to it in a second. It all works okay, but it winds up forking the attendee experience where people less than 1,000 are able to interact in the meeting. The people like 1,001th person who joins, that's a word, only is watching the meeting, and what tends to happen is back channel chat. Like user 1005 is instant messaging somebody else who got on a little bit earlier saying, hey, I don't see the chat. What's going on? And then they come off mute and kind of interrupt you. But we're looking at bumping up the size of a Teams meeting. I do find once I'm over about 100 to 300 people, I have to start putting some options in place to lock it down. We have a little bit more control over what people see in a meeting, but probably not to the level that your leadership wanted. I'm telling this for everybody else. Like if you want to set up like a panel discussion, tends to be the #1 request we get on like, hey, I want to lay it out and have graphics over the top. And you can't do that without jumping in some of the advanced production stuff. So, but I'll show a couple examples and give you some thought on that, on where it might go. Also, Don and I are both in post sales for Microsoft, so we don't care if you guys buy any of this stuff. We just want you to get the most out of it.
Exactly.
Eric, sorry, go ahead. Go ahead, Don.
No, go ahead, Eric.
So, Eric asked about the sort of meeting reminders. Yes, if I want kind of that, hey, reminder, here's your agenda for today, or click here to cancel, that is what the third-party services do. The webinar kind of out of the box feature, if you use that to schedule a meeting, it sends one email with an appointment on it, but it doesn't send any reminders. In the Teams premium SKU for webinars, we do have a reminder motion. And so I'll show you what that looks like and talk to it briefly. But Eric, you're right. That's where some of these third parties, when I think of like if I go to a conference somewhere like Microsoft Ignite when it was in person, it was a bunch of stuff. I got, emails, I got posts from LinkedIn, people reminded me, the conference service was kind of sending me daily updates before the event happened. We don't really have that built into Teams. We're kind of assuming you're using Teams as the vehicle for the audio, video, and content, and then you're managing that with the third tool or doing it manually, sending email reminders or something like that. All right, so I've got, thanks, great questions. So I've got three options. These large structured meetings, Teams webinar, and a Teams live event. And again, I'm going to say it a second time, a webinar is just a Teams meeting with a registration process over the top of it. In terms of what I can do with each one of these, I just want to call out a couple of things. I'm not going to spend too much time on this entire slide. But with a Teams meeting, I can go up to 1,000 people. It's kind of out of the box. If I have a breakout room enabled, it limits the size of the meeting to 300 people. So I always encourage people, if you're doing a big event and then you're going to do breakouts, don't use the breakout room built-in feature in Team. Instead, schedule a separate meeting for each breakout and then drop the join links to that meeting either into chat or put them on a slide and put them up in PowerPoint Live, then people can click on them and get right to them. If you know you're going to have less than 300 people in the main event, that's fine. You can use breakout rooms then. Otherwise, as soon as you add a breakout room to a Teams meeting, it gates the meeting and no more than 300 people can get into it. It's a limitation on the meeting controller up in the Microsoft service. I've also got quite a lot of options with a meeting that I don't get with a live event in terms of controlling what can be seen. It's kind of all or nothing whether you're a presenter or not in a live event. I'll show you what that looks like. Webinars, it's essentially the same thing as a Teams meeting, except it's got registration and some confirmation, just one, out of the box. There is the only place in the Microsoft stack that we have integration with webinar scheduling is Dynamics 365 event marketing. But there are third-party tools, Eventify comes to mind, Go to Virtual Conference, others that use an API call to schedule multiple meetings on behalf of an event or on behalf of a system account that's used more for at scale. So I think of our webinars as something that's it's like a nice solution for like mid-tier public events. Microsoft, we run about 180 webinars a week worldwide. In order to scale that, we do about half of those with Dynamics 365 marketing, and about half of them with a third-party tool called On24 that manages our webinar engine. So, and again, we're enormous, over 150,000 people all around the world. Whereas I've got a lot of my Minty organizations with like 5,000 employees. They're able to use this right out of the box. It does a really nice job without having to invest in something else. And finally, live events, that gives me a little bit more control, a little bit more of a production view, scales up out of the box to 10,000 people, and you can actually ask us to increase a specific event much higher for you. And we have a program I'll talk about later, the Live Event Assistance Program that steps through that. So I'm going to cover these features. They'll be in the slides for exciting reading over the Thanksgiving holiday, but it just kind of compares all those things together to each other. All right. And I want to jump out of my deck and then we'll go in order what we talked about with the large events. While I'm switching my slides around, any more questions pop up that people thought about?
Nothing in chat. Anybody have anything? Raise your hand, come off mute.
I'm counting to 10. Okay. Control and sorry, go ahead.
It's hard to do.
I know, right? Yeah. Well, like I want to keep going, but it's funny. It takes longer in your own head than it is in real life.
Agreed. So
Control spacebar lets you temporarily come off mute. If you're on a Mac, Option and spacebar, Command spacebar. We'll do the same thing. So kind of like that. You stay on mute and just come off quick when your boss asks you a question. So large structured meetings. I'm going to step through a slide of each one of these. I'm going to hop out into a demo and we'll take a look at them and just fire questions as we go. When I'm scheduling a large meeting, what I'm essentially going to do is jump into the options for the meeting and turn on some controls. A couple of caveats I don't have on the slide, but I've just occurred to me that I've seen kind of bump in here. Meetings and Teams are best scheduled from the Teams client. And the reason is I'm logged in as a user when I go in and schedule them. Sorry, large meetings. They're going out to hundreds of people. You can absolutely use Outlook to schedule a meeting as well. Here's a problem. I have observed like executive admins or people with like a community manager role will attempt to schedule a large event and they try to do it from the shared mailbox in Outlook, and it's not supported. You can actually do it because it will create a essentially an appointment in the Exchange mailbox for that mailbox, and it will take the user's meeting details and drop them into the notes for that appointment. However, the connection to meeting options is broken at that point, and you can't get back into them. Then the user sends that out, and we try to go in and do something like hard mute or add someone as a co-organizer. You can't do it. So my recommendation is to always go for a large event, go schedule the meeting in Teams, then grab the join meeting link, create an Outlook appointment, drop the join meeting link into the meeting notes with whatever else you need to include, and then send it out that way. That also allows you to send it out to large distribution lists as well too. It will break the single click join. Like if you hover over the appointment on your phone or in Teams and just click join, you'll have to open it up and then click. But I find it just gives a much more managed experience if you have someone just not comfortable, kind of managing, or they want to, I really want to send the meeting invite, not from Nick Stillings' calendar, but from the Edina, Minnesota office shared mailbox to all the people. That's how I have to do it, is I have to kind of break that process. So once I've got that set up, and I'm able to get to my meeting options, I've got a couple of things I can do. By default, everyone is at parity inside of an organization. So if I schedule a meeting, it goes out to everybody that's in the same company, in the Microsoft 365 tenant, we're all presenters. We also set it up by default, so anyone external is a attendee. And you can actually change this if you go into the admin center under meeting policies and meeting settings. You can adjust what the defaults are, or you can assign specific policies to specific people or groups. Once I go into meeting options, I can actually change this, and I can say, okay, only these specific people can be presenters. Everyone else is attendee. I can also set up a co-organizer, which allows another person to go into meeting options and make changes. They have to be in the same organization, in the same tenant, but that's really nice. If I set up a meeting and go on vacation, Don can actually still get into it if I make him the co-organizer and change options, add apps, turn on or off settings that I'm about to show you. You saw me use a little bit of kind of housekeeping at the top, and I said, hey, this is how we can interact. It's pretty open here, but this is how raise hand is going to work. This is how chat is going to work. There's a setting in there that I can enable for reactions and raise hand. So I paired up the setting in meeting options with a little bit of soft skills, just kind of coaching attendees, hey, this is how we're going to work. I went ahead and added a couple of polls. I did it in this track while we were in the keynote, so I hopped in around 12:30 Central and just added my questions, so they're ready to go. And that way I can, I'm kind of ready to drop something in if I need a little bit of engagement. There is an option to use our Q&A app based on Yammer. I'll show you what that looks like. It's a little bit more structured than the meeting chat. It gives me a Q&A experience closer to what I get with a live event. So we'll see that. And then last couple of things. If I'm doing a screen share, I prefer to do it from the desktop app. It's what Microsoft recommends. It lets the Teams client get access to any resources that are specific to that device versus doing a screen share from the web client. So I always, when I'm working with a presenter, use the desktop client, wire up if it's possible, and if you can, even use PowerPoint Live. It requires a little bit less bandwidth than than screen sharing go over your network card. I'm not using it today because I'm hopping back and forth between slides and demos, but if this was all slides, that's kind of how I would run through it. So I'm going to go through these quickly, then I'll hop out to my demo and we'll kind of see them in real life. And then I want to give you the deck. Everything I'm showing you, there's a link down here at the bottom that goes out to that specific help article. So we're going to talk about co-organizers, and then there's the steps on exactly how to get into this and share it out. And while I'm stepping through this here, let's have some fun. I'm gonna do something that you're never supposed to do as a presenter. I'm going to give you a handout while I am talking. So I have a one-pager. This is in Microsoft's, this is in OneDrive Consumer. So if you aren't able to access this, just drop a link into chat. And Don, if you can help me just kind of manage that one off, we'll figure it out. But that's got everything I'm about to show you. I put together this one-pager with Don and a couple of our peers. because we found that often people weren't quite sure what all these option settings were and what they do. And I always find you're overwhelmed, just use a checklist. So there's just a very simple one pager that you can use. It's in a square, so you can like save it out as a image and then drop it into SharePoint. And it's got the same links to all these help files here as well too. So I find what I'm doing right now is, I can show you guys, but once you get to end users, you really got to give them a little bit of guidance. And I'm trying to forestall a help desk ticket asking for help setting up a meeting by giving them that kind of guidance. So I can go into meeting options and configure who can be a presenter, who can be a co-organizer. I can even enable or disable things like the microphone and video. One of my favorite ones to do for a great big meeting is to turn off meeting chat or to set it so it's only enabled in the meeting. Have you ever been working away and all of a sudden Teams just starts chiming away and you're like, what the heck is going on? And you realize, oh, there's an all hands meeting going and people started chatting in it. And I don't have my notifications set to mute meetings automatically. So if they do it even ahead of time, they can really just kind of blow up Teams a little bit. If I'm doing a public event, so we're all going to be done here today. This is a setting I might want to enable so someone can't come back in on Saturday and say, thanks for the session. I really hate Teams. Like I wouldn't want you to be able to do that. You can do it here and I'll respond to it. So if I set this setting so chat's only enabled in the meeting, just gives me a little bit more control over it. And we've added a couple here since I made the screenshot. So we'll pop out and see what these look like in a second. The nice thing with the meeting options is it's available to the meeting organizer as a pane in the meeting. So if they click the little three dots and click meeting options, it's the exact same settings and they show up just in pane in the meeting. And so it allows me in real time, like maybe we're doing a town hall, the executive is talking, now she's done, and we want to enable everyone's microphones. I can quickly go to meeting options and then enable all. I don't have to like jump over my browser or back into Teams to be able to do it. Likewise, if I forget to do it, it's really disruptive. People are coming off mute or dogs are barking. I can quickly jump in here, get to the meeting options and adjust those settings on the fly as well too. What the user will see, so this is a screenshot of a user on an all hands, is they see a little, your mic's been disabled, your camera's been disabled, and then up at the top, those are just kind of grayed out. And then if I go in and re-enable them, they kind of pop back in and you'll see in the meeting chat, Nick has enabled microphones for the meeting. When I do this in a large meeting, so let's say we've got an all hands, we're doing this a Teams meeting, we've got 200 people on, they probably aren't all showing their videos all at once, but they could. But I've got them muted. I can go and with an individual user, so all these people that are automatically muted, you can right click or just click the little three dots on them and say allow to unmute. And so I am able to unmute individual users, even if I've hard muted everybody else in the meeting. Now I find that's very difficult to do as a presenter. Well, best practice there is have a moderator. So Don's kind of watching the number of people in the meeting. If it suddenly spiked to 300, he would probably start doing some of these things. Oh, sorry, I had a better screenshot, just to give a little bit more control over the experience. So, and again, with like a collaborative meeting, we're under 35. I kind of feel that's kind of about where we're at. You know, you don't have to do as much. We covered reactions already. So thank you for those who gave me hearts and smileys. And then if I use raise hand, the nice thing about that, we updated this, I think at the beginning of this calendar year, is that it shows people in order that the hands were raised. I love this feature. The reason I love it is when I was a teenager, I worked in a retail store. And the worst thing that happened at the cash register was when all the customers were sort of milling around and you weren't sure who was next. And you said, okay, sir. And someone else said, oh, I'm next. And you're trying to sort your way out of it. So you notice if you go into a lot of stores today, people will say, okay, I can help whoever's next. And then they kind of stop and let all the people at the cash register work it out between themselves. This gives me the same thing. I don't have to try and figure out who's next. It's kind of right there in the order that it was. So in this example, we'll hear from Charlotte, then Cassandra. And if I'm the moderator, I will even say that. So I'll say something like, okay, it looks like Charlotte's next, then Cassandra, we'll hear from you, then Danielle. Other folks, you have a question, please drop it in. So I'm kind of always doing that, who's at bat, who's on deck, just to kind of let people know, hey, I do see you, I acknowledge you. Your call is very important to us, and we're going to get to you. That's incredibly difficult to do if you're presenting. So that's where you almost have to have another human as a moderator to help you with that. The other thing that'll happen, so you notice I'm pausing for questions, stopping, and then moving on, is sometimes in a really big meeting, you'll talk about a topic. So let's say we're doing a company all hands. It's November, so we're talking about benefit elections with the healthcare benefits for next calendar year. And I'm doing a 1-hour presentation on it. The first 15 minutes are how to go into the benefit enrollment system. And then we're going to tell people, okay, if you have more questions on that, we're going to take it offline in the channel, moving on to our next topic. I could then go here and lower all those hands that have been raised on the previous topic, saying, hey, we're just not going to get to you. Going to lower all hands. We're going to move on. It's also kind of nice in a big meeting where people forget to lower their hand to do it. So I covered the idea here of just let people know in advance how you're going to do it. We saw the poll pop up. So spotlighting, swinging kind of all the way back around to the question earlier that was asked, just on kind of managing the experience. Hey, Don, would you mind coming on camera and I'll show this if you're still there? I didn't tell him I was going to do this, so we'll see if he's. Thanks, man, in case you ran out or something. So let me drag our meeting over, if this isn't too meta, to see the meeting inside of Teams. And so what Spotlight lets me do, I click here, and I'm going to screenshot you, Don, so smile, look really good. Okay, good, well done. All right, so what Spotlight does is it prioritizes that person's video. It's a way to say, I always want this person to be on screen. Otherwise, what Teams will do is it's using audio, and whoever speaks most recently gets added to the webcam stage. And like if you've got 15 people in the meeting, it's going to use your screen resolution to try and determine how many of those 15 people's videos it can show, and it'll prioritize it based on the last person who spoke. What spotlighting does, so here I'm gonna do this, Don. I'm not quite sure what the effect is going to be, but I'm going to turn it on for everybody. This should have it's going to be different for me because I'm doing it, but for everyone else besides me and Don, you should have just seen his video get a tiny bit bigger because I'm doing the screen share. And if we had 5 or 6 of us on, the 5 or 6 of us would be over here as little videos and Don would be really big. If I have more than one person, I can actually, oh, sorry, let me exit that really quick. If I have more than one person, I can switch over and spotlight the other person. So somebody just spotlighted me. And if you spotlight 2 at a time, you can absolutely do that. Notice it says add spotlight. So this gives me a little bit of a workaround. Like if I've got a meeting with 300 people, I want to ensure the executives are always the ones on stage. I can do this and it will put them both up. It probably won't quite get what your marketing and branding people will want because Teams is going to kind of decide what order it goes in, and it won't let you put like graphics over the top. So what people want is the interview experience in a news studio, right? Both people up and their title and a background branded graphic and a ticker along the bottom. Can't do that out of the box with Teams. So Don, thank you very much. I'll unspot you, like you. And thank you. Got it? Okay. I'm gonna leave myself spotlighted. We'll kind of see how that keeps going. So that gives me a little bit of control over that experience. We have something, we piloted this last spring. And if you joined us for some of our other events we did, like the phone summit, you saw Don use this. We had a feature called managed mode that we rolled out an early preview. We actually rolled it back and we're about to release it as part of Teams Premium, where it won't even allow a video to come on screen unless the organizer goes in and says add to available videos. So I'll show you a screenshot of what that looks like, but that'll give me a little bit more control over just kind of what's being shown in my big meeting. I mentioned the Q&A app. So the question and answer app in Teams, let's jump out and we'll just kind of, I'm going to do this as a demo with myself so we can see it. And I'm remoted into another computer. So right now I'm looking at Nick at Contoso. It's kind of hard to demo Teams inside of Teams. If you get confused with the infinity mirror effect going on here, let me know and I'll go a little bit slower. But I'm going to schedule a meeting and we're going to call this team. Let's do it all hands. And I'm just going to add a couple of users to it just to force it to be a meeting and not an appointment. These are the standard demo personas you always see Microsoft people use. That looks great. We'll just go ahead and hit send. And now I'm going to click on it and click. I can either click edit or the little expand button. That'll take me back. Great. And so in my meeting, I have the option to add things into meetings to add apps. And this is one of the settings that's controlled inside of meeting policies. So if I go to admin.teams, Microsoft.com, because I'm going to talk about policies in a second. Sometimes you'll find, like what we're doing right now, I might want to enable some certain capabilities only for some users in my organization, not for everyone. And so things like being able to add an app into a meeting, that's available underneath meeting policy. If I wanted to disable that, I can go in and turn. I'm sorry, that's messaging policies. I can go in and turn it off. You can see I've got like several that I've been playing with. So this gives me a little bit more control over just kind of what the experience is inside the meetings. What I'm going to do is I can do this in the meeting or I can do it before. I'm going to go in and add our Q&A app. Oops. Oh, wait, Nick, fool. Hold on, we moved where this is. It is under meeting options. It is so hard to keep up with stuff changing in the cloud. I've decided my next career, I'm going to be a Latin teacher. Some body and knowledge that hasn't changed for 3,000 years. Okay, I'm going to jump into the meeting options for my all hands. Let's configure a couple of these. I'm going to turn on the Q&A app, and this is going to enable a managed Q&A where I can essentially people post questions, I can approve them or dismiss them, I can reply, and I can publish a question so other people can see it. So if I want to have something a little bit more structured than a chat where anybody can type in anything, this built-in Q&A app is a nice way to do it. This is for Teams meetings. It looks a little similar to the Q&A in live events. It's a completely different solution. So it's totally different from the one in live events. This one is just for meetings. While we're in here, let's do a couple of other things. I'm going to go ahead and let's set the lobby. So this kind of controls like who can get into the meeting. I'm going to say just people in my company. So if the meeting gets forwarded by accident, I can stop them to come in. I am not a fan. We know at Microsoft, we're almost all using the Teams client, even on our mobile devices. We don't have too many people calling into meetings, but I actually find the little beep when someone joins a little disruptive, so I can turn that off. Now here's some of my power features. I'm going to make Megan a co-organizer of this meeting. That means she can get in and adjust all these options. When she opens up the meeting in Teams, she'll see a link to meeting options. She can get right to it. Other people will not be able to. So if something happens to me, or if I just need to help her, she'll have control of the meeting almost like I do as an organizer. The only thing she can't do is cancel the meeting or change the start time of it, but she can adjust everything else. For presenters, I'm going to say just specific people can be a presenter. So I'm going to pick, let's pick Nestor. Now notice it's only given me one name here. It's because an organizer is kind of a superset of the presenter. And notice, even if I was going to send this out as an all hands, it only shows people that are on the to line of the invitation in the meeting. So if I had a distribution list here, even if it was like all employees, that actually will not show up as a drop down because that's a DL, it's not a human. So they got to be explicitly listed in the invite for this option setting to be able to see them. Let's control this a little bit. I'm going to turn off the camera so people won't be able to turn it on. I'm going to say meeting chat is in meeting only. I don't like the record automatically because what'll happen is if the presenter joins early and then leaves, it creates a little short recording, like a 1-minute recording. You wind up with like 3 or 4 recordings to manage. I actually like to hit this button, but my secret sauce on being able to pull that off, that's actually one of the reasons I have that housekeeping card that we saw at the top, is I will often somewhere in here put a little blurb that says this meeting is being recorded. And it's actually a reminder to me to hit recording. So we don't get like 20 minutes into it and I forget. Okay, Q&A, meeting chat. Cart captioning is if you're using, Cart is like what, if I'm using a third-party closed captioning service instead of the built-in one where I can do the live captions with a human. If I want to, sorry, live captions with cognitive services. If I want to have a human do it, I can actually specify cart captioning. And then language interpretation, I'll talk about this in a second. That's going to be a Teams premium feature once we push it out. Okay, so let's go ahead and save that. Then let's go over to Teams. Go ahead and send my update. Let's go now to all the employees now since I added it. We'll go and join our all hands. Join now. Just kind of see what happens here. I might get an echo because I'm like jumping into a bunch of meetings. Okay, there we go. So now I'm in my meeting. I can start doing stuff. I can, do I have my webcam hooked up to this virtual machine? Let's see what happens here. Hey, all right, okay, so one of me is going to be kind of jerky because I'm making multiple passes across the network card. But here is the Q&A app. So if I enable that, it allows my users to go in and post a question. Will this be recorded? Oops, sorry, fat fingered it, but you get the idea. They get a little bit of formatting that they can choose from. They can go ahead and post it. And then as the organizer, I can go in and reply to it. I can also go in and delete it or dismiss it. And other attendees can give it a thumbs up, which is kind of nice if you've got, you can turn that off, but it's kind of nice if you want to be able to kind of let people sort of pick which tools are the best. Caveat with this, if you enable it, turn off the meeting chat, because it really confuses people, because both these things show up in the same pane, and it is just really confusing if I've got chat and Q&A at the same time. So let's say I want to do this. I'm going to go into meeting options. We decided we're going to use the more managed Q&A. I'm going to disable the meeting chat and save it. Close meeting options. Now if I go to chat, we'll see a little thing here that says chat's been turned off. And so now people can't get into it and accidentally do something. Now they can just use the Q&A. So that gives me just a little bit more control over the experience than if I was doing everything just within the chat itself. Last couple of things in just sort of meeting options that I can configure. Let me bring my examples back up, and then we'll jump back into our slides and look at webinars. Presenter mode is really nice. I use this a fair amount. It essentially is taking my webcam and composing it on top of my content. Let me see if I can trigger it here for us so we can see what it looks like. It's used, what I like about it with a large meeting is it gives me a little bit more formal way to do a layout. So let's say in my meeting, I'm gonna share my desktop. Okay, this we'll see if this works. This might get really confusing. I'm not sure it's gonna let me do it. Let's see, can I do it there? No, it's because I hear myself, but what I'll be able to see, let's go back to the, sorry, I can't remember everything that's gonna work in my demo and what doesn't. What it allows me to do is, it takes my webcam and just like it kind of strips me out of the virtual background in the webcam, so it can drop me on things. It just drops you on the scene in either PowerPoint Live or the screen share inside of Microsoft Teams. You can actually, you have a little bit of control. You can choose how big you are and also where you are on the screen. It just makes things a little bit more professional. I've seen people where they use, like they lay out their PowerPoint slides so all the text is on one side. They make themselves kind of big next to it. And it gives me a little bit more professional production without having to like bring in a studio environment to do it. That also works with PowerPoint Live. So if I'm sharing my slides through PowerPoint Live, I can use the presenter mode with that as well. And the nice thing about this is it makes it a lot easier for people to switch control over the presentation. So if I do this, I'll jump back into my fake meeting here and hit share. And I'm just going to grab, these are PowerPoint presentations that I've got loaded up in OneDrive. It's actually all integrated. So what's kind of cool is if I go out to Office and grab a slide. So here I can do this in the PowerPoint desktop app. I can do it in the web app, or I can even just do it from OneDrive or SharePoint and just go find a presentation that I've been working on. So here I'm in my browser, opening the presentation. In the upper right, there's a little button here that says present. Oops, let's let it finish loading. And there's an option, oops, nope, Nick, don't hit that. There's an option here, present in Teams. And it actually makes a call over to Teams. It says, hey, I see you're in a meeting. Would you like to present this presentation? It's going to bring it onto the meeting stage. So I can kick this off from within PowerPoint or OneDrive or SharePoint, or I can also go here and click share and then pick one of my presentations or even upload one. And so when I do that, that's going to take my presentation, fired up into PowerPoint Live. I've only got one slide, but we would see more here if I wanted to. And now I can start turning on, there we go. I could turn on my composite view and start managing that. So the there's an example of just kind of out of the box and bringing in a couple of more production capabilities with Microsoft Teams for a large meeting, just to make it a little bit nicer experience. So PowerPoint Live's been out for a while. I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but it's just a really nice way to kind of give you a little bit more production. There's a new feature that we released this fall called Cameo. It's kind of similar to PowerPoint Live. It allows you inside of PowerPoint, it allows you to essentially put a placeholder for your webcam. And then when you run the slide deck or run it in PowerPoint Live, it puts your webcam frame inside of the deck in whatever effects you've applied, like if you've cropped the frame or put it in a circle or something like that. So what we're seeing the user here do is doing an insert cameo. She's applying a circle effect, or she's putting it side by side with a big picture. And then when she runs the deck, it just puts her live right next to it. It's a really nice way to kind of bring yourself in to a presentation. You can only do it with one camera at a time. So I still can't get that executive side by side view, but it does give me a little bit more, kind of a nicer capability. Okay. I'm almost done with my large meetings. Speaker Coach is a really nice capability. It gives me like feedback as I'm talking, and then will also generate a report for me. So if I go into the meeting that we're in right now and turn on Speaker Coach, and I'll have to like end the meeting to get everything, but what's happening now is Speaker Coach has started listening to me. And it's listening for things like, I don't know if I can trigger it. Let me try. If I start talking really too fast, it's going to have trouble keeping up. It's going to give me some coaching to kind of slow down. It'll be a little bubble that kind of pops up. If I say, a lot, it'll give a little bubble pop up and saying, hey, you're using a lot of filler words. So if I have to talk for about 3 or 4 minutes for it to kind of get enough feedback to enable it, if I just go in and turn it off, it's going to churn away in the background, and it's going to pop up in Teams to me a little prompt saying, hey, here's the report that we got from Speaker Coach, just giving you some prompting. So when I'm doing a big event, especially if I'm working with executives that don't speak a lot, I love Speaker Coach as a way to just kind of just walk them through being a little bit better speakers. So here, my little example here, you can see as the person's talking, it's popping up little bubbles, just giving them some guidance as they go. So presenting with my large meetings, what I just did is I went through meeting options. I did some option configuration. Then I went in and essentially used some of the more advanced capabilities for presenting to give me a little bit more production. I also used the people pane to manage just the experience, what attendees were able to do and see. And then finally, I've got a just kind of a nice one-pager that sort of lists all that information out that I shared right at the start. So let me go bring that up. And that's that link that is dropped into chat, is that one page. Let me go find it. I'm wondering all over the place. Is that, Don, I'm so sorry. I'm getting lost here with my screen share inside of the meeting. There it is. That is just kind of a nice checklist that kind of manages our way through all those large structured meetings. Okay, let me pause here for questions. Then we're going to jump into webinars, then live events, and then Teams Premium.
Doesn't look like we have anything in chat, but if you guys have any questions, please raise your hand, come off mute.
All right,
I think
I'm gonna keep
just
going.
flabbergasted. There's a lot of good information.
Yeah, or everyone's asleep. Yeah. Like, thanks for the
well,
Friday afternoon session before the Thanksgiving week. Yeah. All right, I'm gonna kill and restart my screen share because this next part I've got a video that I'm gonna play for a couple portions of this. Let's do. Oh shoot, hold on, Nick. Guess what I did, Don? I forgot to set my sound to my headset. There we go. Okay, so let's do computer sound. Great. I'm gonna do that screen. All right. Okay. Webinars. Let's see, how do I get to that slide? Here. Hold on. Now I'm struggling to use PowerPoint. Oh my gosh. I have sections in my deck to help me keep organized, but I didn't name them consistently. So a webinar in Teams is essentially a Teams meeting with registration. There's
Nick,
two.
we're not saying anything.
Oh, thank you. Okay, let's try this again.
Lost your camera, lost your desktop. No, there we go, camera.
All right, hold on. Let me reset the camera. Let me reshare my screen. So I'm sharing a slide. It's the user group background with the words webinar and Teams on it. Okay.
Perfect.
Thanks, buddy.
Now.
Well, everything is, so I'm connected to another machine all over one network card, so I'm probably occasionally crushing it let's see how this video plays. Let me know if it doesn't work. I'm going to walk through. A webinar in Teams is essentially a Teams meeting. If I jump back over to my demo environment, I've got two ways that I can do this. I can create a meeting. This will call it webinar. I always have to add at least one person to allow me to go ahead and save it. And in a regular team meeting, there's an option here to require registration. So you can do this with any meeting. I could go and say, you know what? The only people that can get into this thing are people who register for it. And when I do that, Teams is actually going to create a registration page for me up in the Teams service. This is what I'm going to actually give out to people, not a calendar invite, but a link to registration. And then I can go in here and customize it. So if I've got a background image that I want to upload, maybe something with our brand on it, I can go in and grab that. Do I have one? I don't know if I was smart enough to have something saved. I sure thought I did. Okay, if I had a really good picture, I would bring that up and add it as a banner. I can also put in additional information. I can list who the speakers are. I can put custom fields in. So when people register, maybe I want to capture what company they're from or their email, or I even have a custom question I want to ask. Let's go in here and ask, is pineapple a good pizza topping? And then I could put in my different options, yes, no, yes, no, and add additional ones. And then the other thing I can do is put in information about my speaker. So let's say I'm going to be talking. I'm in Minnesota, of course, so I'll put in some Swedish text. Great. And then we'll go ahead and save that. I'm going to copy this link. So it's in my clipboard, and then go ahead and save that. And so what our webinar looks like, let's open up a private browser, drop that in. This is the registration page that it just generated for me. Now I didn't put my nice banner at the top so you don't see it. But now if someone comes in and registers, so let's put in Joe Schmo, and he's js@gmail.com. That's fake. Please don't email that. And he does not like pineapple. Go ahead and hit register. He'll actually get an email saying, here's the event that you registered for, and it includes an ICS file attached to it. And that's the only communication he'll get. So we won't send out a reminder, but there will be a link in that email he can click on to cancel his registration and come out of it. And then as the person who organized the meeting, what I'll see if I go back into my webinar is now, I got my screen zoomed in just a little bit, but now what I'll be able to see is the people who've actually registered for my meeting. So these are all my standard meeting options. I can do all the stuff you saw me do a second ago, like control things, but now I've got a button here that says registration, and that shows me under attendance who's registered so far for my webinar. And then after it actually happens, it'll show whether or not they actually joined the thing or not and what time they joined. So this gives me kind of some nice capabilities. If I was doing this for real, I had 20 people on, I'd actually go here to download it. It'll let me pull down the registration report. This is a file, so it'll pull it down as an Excel file. And then I can start working with it. So again, if I have a really mature marketing department that's doing a lot of this connected marketing, they probably have a process in place for this already. But if they don't, this is a nice way to kind of just let me very quickly build out a simple process to be able to schedule and drive these webinars. So we have a new experience that's actually coming. And that's when I want to show you a little 60-second video on it. This is free. It doesn't require Teams Premium. It gives me a little bit more control over the setup and the reminder capabilities that are in a webinar. So that's a premium feature, costs extra money.
Yeah, I don't think sound's playing, but I think you guys are
Oh, it's
getting
not?
reduced for some reason.
So we're just
I thought
watching
it was
this video?
just me, but it sounds like it was
Dude.
something.
Sorry. Okay. There's a narration running for this whole thing. I should have confirmed that. All right. Okay. I'll hold on. Let me mute this so I don't hear it. Okay. So what she's showing is, I'm so sorry, everyone. What she's doing is she created a webinar, went in and set those options. And in the new webinar experience, there's a couple other things we're able to do. Notice the meeting options were right there inside of the webinar creation. The registration page still looks about the same, but it shows up a little bit nicer report rather than that kind of one-off tab that you saw me do earlier. It shows a lot more detail on the participants, and this is what it looks like after a webinar has happened, what we just saw. I'm going to jump in. We'll go through this a little bit slower so we can see it. So let me jump into, I'm going to show you my production team's environment. So you saw me create a new meeting and then add registration to it. The other way that I can do that is if I click the little drop down, there's a button that says webinar, and this schedules something that's just a webinar by default. So I'm going to do that on another monitor, then drag the screen over so we can see it. Okay, so here is my new webinar coming in. Okay, so I'm going to make a new webinar. I'm doing some marketing, and I want to set this up and schedule it. So we're going to call it Contoso Product Launch, and we're going to do this not next week, but the first Monday after Thanksgiving. Let's leave it for, let's do it 1 p.m. right after lunch, 30 minutes. I can go, and by default, it's picking up my time zone, but if I wanted to make it another one, I could do it. Amazing overview. This is my full description. Now, this is my production environment, so I can add actual people here. So, Don, I'm going to add you as an organizer. Please remember that we did this. Don't join the Contoso project launch in 10 days. And then event access down here at the bottom. This is that setting we saw earlier. If I set it to private, then only people who are in my tenant, so in this case, people with an @microsoft.com email address, because that's who I work for, would be able to access it. If I say public, then anyone will be able to see it and get to it. So that's my first step, is just going to go through and set that up and save it. Let's see, I'm missing something here. I want to save and send. Oh, that'll just, sorry. That's going to now send a meeting request to Don. So since Don is on my event team, he actually gets the invite. Don, you'll see this show up in your calendar in a little bit. But for everyone else, they have to register to get the invitation for it. So we can now put in our bios. So I'm going to be one of the speakers, so I can fill in as much information as I want. Let me, I think I was just working on my headshot earlier somewhere for, oh, here, we'll just kind of see what we got. I'm doing something I should never do, just see what pictures I have out on the internet. Oh, okay, I'm gonna grab my peer, Martin. I don't think Martin's not in this, is he, Don? He's a customer success manager.
I didn't see him. I did not see him.
He works for state and local government. Okay, we'll just make it Martin. All right, and I can put in his company, what he's done, links out to his Twitter profile. I'll go ahead and save that. So it gives me a little bit more control. I also get some theming options. So you saw me struggle with this a second ago, just because I didn't have any pictures loaded. Let's see what we got. So if I have any kind of an image or a theme that I want to use, here I'll use for some reason I have the Windows desktop background saved. Great. Use the Windows 10 background as my theme. So that lets me kind of pick a banner image. I can also specify a different logo I wanted to, or even change the color. And then I have some control over how registration works. Now, I was trying to come off mute and just kind of flubbed it a little bit. If I zoom in here, it's these capabilities right here require the team's premium license. So I'm going to do the slides on premium in just a second. But by default, when I set this up, if I don't do anything else with Teams, anyone who registered automatically gets an invite. I have up to the capacity of the meeting, so I can go in and control that. I can say, okay, if I wanted to, I could set that to like 50. And then when the 51st person hits that registration link, it'll just say, sorry, this is full. The premium feature also enables a wait list and the registration date. So I could say, you know what, you can only register for our event on the 5th, we're going to let you register until, you know, like the 2nd or however far I want it to go and pick the time for it. So that's what these capabilities all are just the Teams premium features. Then the other thing is that forum you saw me do earlier, we've just changed it a little bit. So you now can go in and just add it here on the bottom. Status will show me who's registered. This should be empty because I haven't done anything with it yet and published it. And the same thing with reports. So now once I'm all ready and I publish it, great, there's my link. So again, you'll notice this kind of consistent theme with events in Teams is that you can have an event, but we want you to get the link to the event and send it out somehow instead of sending a calendar invite like we would for the regular meeting. We'll do the invite for the event team, but everybody else has to somehow go through the event link. So there's my event. If I want to go ahead and register for it, I can fill that out and hit register. And then that would sign me up for it. Right now, today, we don't have any kind of a pricing mechanism in it, but we're actually kicking around enabling that. I haven't seen anything announced formally on the roadmap, but at least in preview, where it's actually something that's under consideration. But right now, today, you know, back to my earlier thing, if I'm doing something really formal, like a big conference, I probably still use a third-party tool. We used Eventify. We used Eventbrite for the event today, and that could have used a ticketing capability for us if we wanted to. So that's essentially how a webinar works inside of Microsoft Teams. I'm going to get to this is all what we call the new webinar experience. It lets me kind of set up who the speakers, put the bio in. Because it's a Teams meeting, I get Teams meeting things like presenter mode, reactions, polls, Q&A, Cameo. So again, it's a meeting. It's just registration that's just a little bit different. The reporting is a little bit richer. So this is in preview right now. It's going into preview, the new webinar experience with this new report. What I like about the new one is it shows me how long each person was in the meeting. We don't have that in the existing one. So it just gives me a little more detail as a marketer. And then since it's a Teams meeting, my Teams admin can go into the admin center and just as with any other meeting, they can look at all the different tools for call health. So this will show up in the call quality dashboard historically. If this is a really important webinar, maybe I'd want to have real-time analytics up and running and kind of running on the presenter. So I just get a little bit control over it. So I'm going to have this slide in the follow-up because it goes into detail on what's in the premium features for Teams webinars versus what we have just in the regular E3, E5 team license. There's a couple of things here I didn't show you. Let's just kind of zoom in and look at it. The first is Green Room. It creates like a sort of a separate meeting for the event team, and then we can bring them together into the webinar. This has been an oft requested thing. I want to have my team talking and then come into one meeting where other people already are, a Green Room feature. The managed mode that I talked about earlier, where I could control whether or not someone even has the ability to come on stage and what that looks like. That's a premium feature. The reminder emails, wait list, approval, registration limit, and then if you register, you're not brought into the lobby, you immediately go past it. Those are all Teams premium features as well too. With this new Teams premium license, only the organizer has to have that license for these features to be enabled. So we're going into preview with the Teams premium features in December. We expect to release it in February. And for everyone here, what I would consider doing is, do you have event organizers in your organization? They might be candidates for this, at least for the events. There's also some intelligence capabilities in that, like use AI to automatically figure out if a task was made in a meeting or give you a recap of a meeting. I would pilot that with a small group of users. And then I would make the call on whether or not your organization needs Team Premium. We kind of don't expect everyone in an organization to need it. More for those that require some of these additional capabilities around meetings and webinars. Last thing, because we have this new capability in webinars that's rolling, we're going to enable a new policy in meetings policies that enables that new webinar experience that you saw. It's called Teams Event Policy. It's the new one. Oops. Where'd I go? That's not where I want to go. Dang it, Nick. Sorry, I clicked on the wrong spot. Let me control click in PowerPoint. Thank you. There we go. And so Just FYI, there's a new command coming that's going to be both in the admin center and available as PowerShell that lets me determine whether or not people can use this new webinar experience. I can set up a meeting policy with that, and then I can assign it to individual users or groups. So if I have a group of like event organizers, it might make sense to assign them the webinar capabilities and then not assign it to anybody else. That's different than whether or not they have the license, whether or not the Teams premium license, but it just controls their ability to create a webinar. So like in some organizations, people are really restrictive on who can do public facing things unless they've been through some type of training. So Eric, I just now saw your chat from like 15 minutes ago. Sorry about that. Thanks. That's the webinar experience in Teams. So it's Teams meeting, has registration. If you use the Teams premium license, you get a little bit more control and reminders on it. The premium license comes out in general availability in February. Most of what you saw is available right now inside of Microsoft Teams. Questions on that?
Doesn't look like it.
Right.
And time check, just watch your time.
I saw
It's
about 13 minutes.
13 minutes-ish. Yep.
So I think what I'm going to do, let me just hold on. Let me go look at the Teams Premium. Sorry, I'm not trying to upsell anybody to Teams Premium. I just want to make sure, because this is one you're probably going to get some questions on. I'm going to skip through this really quick, see if there's anything really important we need to call it. Nope, no video, no. No, I think we have a blog post from Ignite that covers Teams Premium. In a nutshell, there's three things: capabilities for event organizers. There are some AI-driven intelligence for meetings that could benefit anybody, including things like live translation to different languages and the meeting recap. And then finally, there's something called advanced virtual appointments, which is used to schedule external appointments. So if you ever use the Microsoft Bookings app, it's kind of similar. Like you saw me build a webinar, what virtual appointments do is you go in as a user, there's an app that you add into Teams. You block time on your calendar and say, this is when I'd like appointments to be available. Then you publish it to an external page. People can click on that and register for appointments. And then it sends them a meeting invitation and allows them to join that meeting via Teams or via web client if they don't have Teams installed on their device. It also uses a queue. So if you have back-to-back appointments, it'll let them come in one after another, and it'll let someone know, hey, you're in the meeting queue. You'll come in a little bit, but it doesn't let the attendees kind of cross over each other. So it's intended for virtual healthcare, virtual consultations. Anytime I might do an appointment that's business to consumer, that's the third pillar of Teams Premium. Let's finish up with meeting communities and live.
Actually, Nick, there was a question by Eric.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
Will the new webinar
Yes.
experience?
Thanks, Eric. The new experience will be the norm we expect by the end of December. So we'll have, if you have that allow webinar feature in the policy enabled today. So again, this is in the slide. We have one of these weird Microsoft, two different meeting policies that kind of overlap with each other. Let's see, that's on slide 48. Nope, not that one. This is the old policy, or excuse me, the old setting, allow meeting registration in Teams meeting policies. If this is turned off today, people can't schedule webinars at all. If it's turned on, they can. Then we're having a new one come out. It'll be turned on by default. So if you do nothing, it'll just be the norm. Everyone will have it. If you turn it off and leave the old one on, you can keep the old experience. We haven't announced a time that will deprecate it. So if you don't want to have that, the new dialogue that I showed, if you got people using webinars today, you can actually stay on the old one. If both of them are off, you don't get anything. If one is off and the new one's on, you don't get anything until we get to the end of the transition period, which we believe will be in January. So short answer is yes, this will become the norm if you don't do anything else. Slightly longer answer is if you go in and start bumping against these policy settings and meeting policies, you'll get a slightly different experience. And this is actually documented in our Ignite announcement about the new webinar capabilities. Sorry to do the Microsoft vendor thing and everything was in Ignite, but we did cover some of it. Don, anything else?
Nope, looks like we're good.
Okay, all right. Let's jump to live events then. This one's a little bit easier. Well, I'm going to start with these. If you haven't seen this at all, I'll stick on, no, I won't stick on, but I'll remain in the chat if people have additional questions on this one after we get here to 2:30. Live events, as I mentioned earlier, it's a broadcast event. We're looking at the attendee view of a live event. What's happening is I'm seeing my webcam from the person who's my presenter. I've got the option of having a Q&A pane. It's different than the Q&A app we saw for meetings. See, it looks a little bit different. And then what's happening in the background, this is what my producer sees. So in a live event, I have a meeting that my event team joins. My producer, my presenters, they're actually in a Teams meeting. The UI is very, very different. If you look really closely, like over there on the nav bar on the left, I'm still in Microsoft Teams. Down at the bottom, that is my view of all the different people that are in the meeting as presenters with their webcams turned on. And what my producer does is click up here and picks one of two layouts, picks whether or not they want to include a video screen share from one of my presenters and one of the webcams, and then sends it live. And then that goes out to the attendees and then they see it. What tends to throw people the first time they do this, there's two really common mistakes. They're just not expecting to see this view at all, and they come in as an organizer. The other mistake, this is in a live event. Jump ahead here to a build slide. Inside of a live event, there's a Microsoft Teams meeting that's actually generating the content for it. So I've got a meeting that my event team is in, then Microsoft picks it up, sends it over Azure Media Services through our content delivery network and down to all the attendees. People accidentally forward this meeting invite to all my attendees, and they're trying to come into the meeting. It's also the meeting starts blowing up with people in the lobby. You imagine we were doing a network news show, and all of us showed up at 30 Rockefeller Center, banging on the door, wanting to come into the studio instead of watching it on our televisions or on our stream. So that's where I want to be careful when I schedule one of these live events that I don't accidentally send the meeting invite out to people instead of the attendee link itself. So I'll run through this in lightning speed, and then Don, I'll probably wrap up here in about 2 minutes. So let me jump back over to my demonstration, back to my calendar and Microsoft Teams. I'm going to say new live event. Looks kind of like I'm scheduling a meeting. Contoso broadcast, call it whatever you want. I've got a couple of roles that I can pick from. So if I want like another person to be my producer, I can go in and specify that. So we'll make Diego a producer. I'm going to add a couple more people. Let's add Megan, make her a presenter, and Nestor, we'll have him be a presenter as well. Then click next. I specify who can watch it. So if I want it to be only certain groups, just people in my tenant or public, I'll have that as an option. How do I want to produce it? Do I want to use Microsoft Teams? There's a new capability where I can use an external encoder instead of the Microsoft Teams client for a public live event. What the heck does that mean? Well, what you're about to see me do is set up a meeting. I'm going to grab the meeting content, and that's what's going to go out to everybody. An encoder is a separate piece of software or hardware that can generate content and then send it into Microsoft Teams. This is often used if I have a professional studio environment and we want to use like our cameras and studio switchers and things like that. That's actually an option. So if I specify that and say external device, it's actually going to give me a link that I would use to hook up to that external encoder. In this case, I'm going to say I'm just going to use the regular Teams client to do it. Let's go ahead and schedule. Great, that looks good. It's going to give me two things. Sends an invite out to all the people on my event team, gives me a link for my attendees, and that's what they're actually going to use to join the live event. So if I go see what does the attendee see, I'll just open it up in my browser so we can see their experience. It's going to show Teams and have the Teams logo, but they're not actually in a true Teams meeting. It's bringing up the Teams client and just using a player rendered inside that allows them to kind of see the experience or see the content. Let's see, in this one I said I have to be part of the org, so we'll join in, nope. Let's see what happens here. I think I may have signed in as the producer, so I might get not quite the experience I'm expecting. Let's just find out. And then, oh, good. Okay, good. It's coming up. So it's going to kind of sit here and just kind of wait for the event to start. So right now it says, okay, the broadcast hasn't started. We're kind of waiting on you. Then if I go over back to Teams and join as my event team, anytime it's run slow, if you jiggle the mouse, it runs a little faster. There it goes. Now I'm only in here by myself, so let's do a couple of things. I'll go ahead and share out like maybe a window that I've got running. It looks good. Just we got something to present. Let's go back over to Teams. And now what I would do is say, oh, let's turn on my webcam. I've got something here to show. Now I'm mixing roles. Normally I wouldn't be presenting and producing at the same time. But what I could do is pick one of my content sources, then send that live. This gives me my content and sort of a preview of it. The event hasn't started yet, so if I switch back over, like my person is still kind of waiting for something to start. But once I hit start, confirm it, now it's going to start sending that media stream out to my attendees. And as the producer, I have a little bit of layout control, so I could put my webcam like next to my shared screen. So I could say, okay, Nick is about to give us a demonstration of the Windows 11 Explorer. Go ahead, Nick. I'll switch that out. Now you've got me and my screen at the same time. I can do something. And now I'm going to lean in and talk about the importance of the context menu in Windows. So make me full screen and then send that live, and then that's what goes out. What the attendee is seeing, remember, it's a media stream. It takes about 15 seconds for that stream to make its way from Teams out across the internet to my attendee. So notice what we're seeing right here is me from about 15 seconds ago doing stuff inside of Microsoft Teams. So in a second, we'll see me kind of switch up the screen and push that out. With all the announcements we made around webinars and Teams Premium and large events, we are not making any changes to live events. We're going to leave them as is. Based on the earlier question, our long-term plan, and this will probably be at least a year, is to deprecate live events, just use Teams meetings, and have a view-only experience for meetings that scales up to 100,000 people. So right now we have these two different event stacks with live events, meetings, maybe three if you count webinars. We're going to collapse all those down to Teams meetings that have registration, have options like who can be on video or not, and the ability to stream meeting content elsewhere. So that's kind of our long-term plan and roadmap for those events in Microsoft Teams. So for today, everything I showed you, I've got in the PowerPoint slides that we looked at. And then I don't have these published yet, Don, I'm so sorry, but I'll get them pushed up. There's a speaker portal for the admin workshop day that they've asked us to submit it to. So I'll have those up and available by the end of the day today. Don, when are we sharing that out with everybody? Do you know off the top of your head?
Probably usually within the next, give us a week or so, but we have Thanksgiving next week. We'll see how it goes. So if not next week, it'll be the following week.
Okay. Oh, and sorry, quick question. Alexander, no. I can RTMP into a live event. We don't yet have RTMP into a Teams meeting. We do have RTMP out, so you can like send a meeting to YouTube Live or something like that. But okay, sorry, Don, when I answered that last one. So I'm going to stick on. We're at time for the session. I will hang out in the chat and try to carefully reply so it's not confusing for the next people that are coming in. Do you want to close us out and just there's an eval survey that we want to hit, right?
Absolutely, yeah. I threw the link in the chat, so thank you, Nick. Awesome job as always. I did throw the link in for the survey, and for the gift card, Lauren Wahlberg won the gift card for this particular session. I will make sure that Lauren, if you want to make sure you get me your email address, if you're still on, I hope. And we will get you that. So please do that. And then again, thank you, Nick. Great job. And he'll be hanging out online if you have any questions.
Yep, I'm watching. For those who are just joining, we're just finishing up the events and Teams. I'm the presenter for that. I'm going to stick around answering those questions in chat. But if you're wondering why it doesn't relate to the current topic, that's why. So thanks, Don. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. All right. Okay. With that, let's see if Eric and Richard are around, which I hope they are. Nice job, Richard.
Yes, I'm here.
Excellent. And Nick, if you want to stop sharing, go ahead.
So sorry, I was looking at the monitor. Yes. Well, one more call. Give good feedback today. We really want that. We'll post the eval in at the end.
Absolutely. And then Eric, if you want to go, also come on. Oh, he's at standby. 1 minute. Got it. No problem.
Eric, you can't have a phone call. It's at 2:30. It's time, buddy. Let's go.